You blind. If you sit in your church and you know, well, why can't I live like that? You can't tell me you sit in church and you don't be like, well, why can't I live like my pastor? Why can't I live like my first lady? Or they entourage.
LeAndria Johnson is no stranger to controversy. In an industry where many avoid uncomfortable truths, she has never shied away from sharing her personal battles. But in a recent live stream, the gospel singer stunned even her most loyal fans. LeAndria spoke openly about corruption in the church, particularly pointing fingers at the televangelist Creflo Dollar. Join us as we tell you what really happened between LeAndria Johnson and Creflo Dollar. LeAndria Johnson won hearts when she took the stage on Sunday Best in 2010. Her voice was powerful, her presence magnetic, but it was her unfiltered honesty that truly set her apart. While many gospel artists have tried to embody an image of perfection, LeAndria came with her flaws visible. She never hid her struggles with addiction, openly discussing her battles with alcohol abuse in interviews and on social media, even checking into rehab while still performing. She wrestled with her faith in public spaces, often tearfully questioning everything during low moments. Fans related to her openness about being a work in progress. In numerous live streams and interviews, she's opened up about how the gospel world treated her not as a person, but as a product. In 2018, she called out the institutional church for being more concerned with money and status than true ministry. At the time, her words sparked debate but lacked specific targets. However, in the years that followed, she began naming names, and one of those names was Creflo Dollar. In one of her emotional live streams, LeAndria directly called out Pastor Creflo Dollar. She said he is a big part of what considers a system of faith exploitation. She directly accused Creflo's ministry of pressuring congregants into giving large sums of money under the guise of spiritual breakthroughs. According to LeAndria, many churchgoers were promised divine favor, miracles, or financial success, if only they would sow a seed. But for many, those promises never came true. Instead, they were left deeper in debt while their pastors grew wealthier. Her accusation wasn't just that prosperity gospel theology was flawed, it was that its execution was predatory. LeAndria claimed she witnessed congregants, especially single mothers and elderly members, being told to give even when they clearly couldn't afford to. She also hinted that Creflo's ministry used tactics to emotionally manipulate people into giving, such as guilt-tripping them for a lack of faith or suggesting that poverty was a sign of spiritual deficiency. These aren't just spiritual abuses, they're psychological ones. The backlash was immediate. Some fans turned on her. Industry colleagues distanced themselves, but LeAndria stood her ground. She didn't apologize, didn't take anything back. In fact, she doubled down, because for her, speaking the truth was worth the risk. LeAndria accusations aren't the first time that Creflo has been in the news for all the wrong reasons. Even for someone as famous as LeAndria, Creflo Dollar is a big name to challenge. As founder and senior pastor of World Changers Church International, his teachings have reached millions across the globe. He preaches that faith can unlock wealth and health, and that giving, especially financial sowing into the church, is the path to divine blessings. For his supporters, he is a visionary who empowers believers to live abundantly. But to critics, he represents everything wrong with modern televangelists. They believe these televangelists encourage lavish spending and present a distorted gospel that equates spirituality with materialism. But even before LeAndria took his name, Creflo has faced scrutiny multiple times, especially after reports about his extravagant lifestyle surfaced. From multiple luxury homes to high-end cars and private jets, his net worth and assets have sparked intense criticism. Perhaps the most infamous episode was his request in 2015 for $65 million in donations to fund a new Gulfstream G650 jet, which was supposedly to help him travel the world for ministry. Many questioned how such an appeal could be justified when many church members struggle to meet basic needs. And it's this very tension that lies at the heart of LeAndria Johnson's criticisms. She raised a question that how can a pastor live like a celebrity while their congregation can't afford rent? According to her, it's highly unethical. In her livestream, LeAndria revealed that the gospel industry and megachurch culture operate with a level of behind-the-scenes strategy most followers never see. She spoke of being invited to private events where big-name pastors and gospel influencers weren't discussing the teachings of religion, they were more focused on profits, brands, and strategies. She alleged that these off-camera gatherings focused heavily on money, how to raise it, how to market products, and how to maintain influence. According to her, sermons were sometimes designed not to uplift, but to maximize emotional impact and giving. She claimed that churches kept meticulous records of who gave what, and those with higher contributions were given special treatment, such as access to exclusive events, blessings, or even tailored prophecies. Meanwhile, those who gave less were subtly shamed, ignored, or told they lacked faith. She painted a picture of a church that had become more like a luxury club than a house of worship, a place where financial clout determines spiritual importance. She also shared how she was approached by insiders with offers to participate in the system, preach prosperity, endorse certain leaders, and she'd receive financial support and platform growth. But when she declined, the doors started closing. What LeAndria revealed is not just a critique of one pastor, but of an entire infrastructure where influence is bought, and honesty comes at a price. One of the most chilling aspects of LeAndria's story is the pressure gospel artists face to stay quiet. She explained how the industry protects its most powerful figures, punishing anyone who dares to speak out. After she named Creflo Dollar, LeAndria said she experienced a wave of professional blackballing. Her music was quietly pulled from radio rotation, calls stopped coming, and appearances were canceled. Industry insiders warned her that speaking against a figure like Creflo Dollar would finish her career. In the gospel world, many artists depend on the church circuit for their income, concerts, conferences, and church-backed promotions. Criticizing a major pastor can mean losing access to all of it. She also said she received threats both subtle and direct, urging her to retract her statements or stop speaking altogether. She was called a troublemaker, a distraction, even ungrateful. But in her eyes, silence was no longer an option. LeAndria believes that the gospel world has an unspoken code, which is to protect the brand at all costs. That means ignoring abuses of power, looking away from financial exploitation, and publicly praising leaders even if privately questioning them. She mentioned other artists who have quietly disappeared after speaking out, people who went from chart-topping hits to being completely erased from the industry. Their careers didn't end because of a lack of talent, but because of what they dared to say. Creflo Dollar continues to deny any wrongdoing, and many of his followers remain fiercely loyal. They see his wealth as a sign of divine favor and spiritual success, but a growing number of people are beginning to examine the system more critically, spurred on by the boldness of LeAndria Johnson, who had the courage to speak what others only whispered. Her raw honesty hit a nerve, challenging the comfort zones of both church leaders and believers. The greatest impact of her testimony isn't in the controversy itself, but in the ripple effect. She's given voice to those who felt disillusioned, shamed, or manipulated. She is encouraging people to not stay silent out of fear, guilt, or loyalty. LeAndria has also asked gospel artists to be truth-tellers, even when it costs them everything, even when it means losing fans, platforms, or friends. Regardless of how others respond, one thing is certain: LeAndria Johnson has chosen her path. She refuses to be silent in the face of injustice, no matter how revered the institution is or how steep the personal cost.